My name is Celeste Morgan. I am 37 years old. And the first thing my mother-in-law ever said to me, not about me, not behind my back, but directly to my face within 20 minutes of meeting me for the first time, was this. I just want you to know that I have seen this before. Young women who find their way into established families. I want you to know that I am watching. She said it with a smile. The particular smile of someone who has decided they are protecting something valuable and has given themselves permission to be unkind in service of that protection. I was 28 years old. I was standing in her kitchen holding a bottle of wine I had brought as a gift. Her son Thomas was in the next room with his father. I looked at her. I set the wine on the counter. And I said, "Thank you for telling me that directly. I appreciate people who say what they mean." She blinked. That was not the response she had prepared for. I smiled. I picked up the wine. I found a vase for the flowers she had not offered to put in water. And I walked into the next room to find Thomas. That was the beginning. What happened over the next 8 years, and what the family lawyer said in a room of 11 people that left my mother-in-law sitting completely still without a single word, is the story I want to tell you today. If you are new here, please subscribe right now and drop your country and local time in the comments. I read every single one. Now let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a small town in West Virginia. My father worked in logistics. My mother was a school librarian. We were not poor, but we were not wealthy. We were the kind of family where money was something you thought about carefully and spent deliberately and did not discuss at dinner tables with people you had just met. I was the first person in my family to go to graduate school. I studied environmental law at Georgetown on a partial scholarship and 2 part-time jobs, and the specific determination of someone who has decided that education is the one thing nobody can take back from you once you have it. I graduated at 26 with a law degree, significant debt, and a clerkship at a federal court in Washington that paid enough to cover my rent and my loan minimums and almost nothing else. I met Thomas at a charity event I attended with a colleague. He was 32. He came from a family with old Virginia money, the kind that has been in the same county for 4 generations and knows exactly what it is and what it expects. Thomas was not what I expected from that background. He was self-deprecating about the family money in a way that felt genuine rather than performed. He was funny. He asked questions and listened to the answers. He had built his own career in architecture entirely separately from his family's wealth because, as he told me on our second date, he needed to know he could. I understood that immediately. We dated for a year before he introduced me to his family. He prepared me as honestly as he could. He told me his mother Vivian was protective. That she had strong opinions about who belonged in the family. That she would be direct in ways that might feel aggressive until you understood it was simply how she operated. I thought I was prepared. I was not entirely prepared. The first meeting I already told you about. The kitchen. The wine. The smile. What followed over the next several months was a sustained and precise campaign to make me feel unwelcome in a family I had not yet joined. Vivian made comments about my background at every gathering. Not loudly. Quietly. The kind of commentary that is designed to be heard by the person it is aimed at without being obviously rude to anyone watching. At Thanksgiving she mentioned, in the context of discussing property values, that West Virginia had been having quite a difficult time economically. She looked at me when she said it. At Christmas she asked me about my loan repayment schedule in front of Thomas's aunts and cousins. Not with concern. With the specific precision of someone making a point about where I had come from and what I owed. At Thomas's cousin's wedding she introduced me to an elderly great-aunt as Thomas's friend. Not his girlfriend of 8 months. His friend. Thomas spoke to her after each incident. Privately. I was not there for those conversations. What I know is that they did not stop the behavior. They modulated it. Made it slightly less visible. But the intention behind it remained exactly what it had been in that kitchen on the first evening. She had decided what I was. And she had decided to make sure I knew she had decided. Thomas and I got engaged 3 years into our relationship. He proposed at the apartment we had been sharing for a year, quietly, at home, with a ring he had chosen himself without consulting his mother, which I only learned later had been a deliberate and significant decision on his part. We called his parents together from the couch that evening. His father congratulated us warmly. His voice genuine, immediate, no hesitation. Vivian said she was happy for Thomas. Not for us. For Thomas. I noted it. I filed it. I said thank you. The engagement period was the most sustained version of what had been building for 3 years. Vivian inserted herself into every wedding decision she could access. The venue, the guest list, the flowers, the menu. She had opinions about all of it, and she expressed them through Thomas in the specific way of someone who has learned that going directly is less effective than going through the person you have influence over. Thomas handled it better than I expected. He held the line on most things. He let her have the rehearsal dinner venue because it genuinely did not matter to us and it mattered enormously to her. He did not let her have the guest list or the ceremony structure or the menu. She was gracious about what she won and coldly polite about what she did not. We got married on a Saturday in October. The wedding was beautiful. Thomas cried when I walked in. His father hugged me after the ceremony and said welcome to the family in a way that felt like he meant it for both of us. Vivian kissed my cheek at the reception. Cold lips. Correct form. Perfect distance. The marriage itself was good. I want to be honest about that because this is not a story about a bad marriage. Thomas was a good husband. He was present. He was honest. He supported my career when I started my own environmental law practice 3 years in. He was proud of me in a way he showed rather than just said. Vivian remained Vivian. The gold digger commentary evolved as my career grew. It became more subtle. More sophisticated. As it became harder to position me as someone taking from Thomas, because I was by then earning more than Thomas, it shifted to something more nuanced. She began making comments about my priorities. About women who chose careers over family. About the importance of being present. These were delivered at family dinners with the same precise aim as everything before them, dressed now in the language of concern rather than suspicion. I sat through all of it. For 8 years I sat through all of it. I am not entirely proud of that. In retrospect, there were moments when I should have said something sooner. But I had made a decision early in my marriage that I would not spend my energy fighting Vivian. I would spend it building something she could not argue with. I built it. By year 8 of our marriage, I was a named partner at the firm I had joined after closing my practice. I had tried 3 cases before federal appellate courts. I had been named one of the top environmental lawyers in Virginia under 40. Thomas's father Harold had quietly and consistently been one of my greatest supporters throughout. He came to my speaking engagements. He read my published articles. He told anyone who would listen what his daughter-in-law did for a living with a pride that was completely uncomplicated. Harold was diagnosed with a progressive neurological condition in year 7 of our marriage. It moved faster than the doctors had initially projected. By year 8 he was significantly limited and had begun the process of putting his affairs in order. The meeting I am going to tell you about now happened in the spring of year 8. Harold had requested it. His lawyer arranged it. 11 people in the formal sitting room of the family home, Harold and Vivian, Thomas and me, Thomas's brother Edward and his wife, 2 cousins who were beneficiaries of Harold's estate, Harold's personal lawyer, a financial advisor, and Harold's oldest friend Richard, who had been asked to witness. Harold could not stand for long periods by then. He sat in his chair at the center of the room. He looked smaller than he had even 6 months before. But his eyes were exactly as they had always been. Sharp, warm, completely present. The lawyer went through the estate documents methodically. Properties, accounts, the family trust, the distribution structure. It was a long meeting. Formal and careful in the way of things that matter legally. Then the lawyer reached a specific addendum that Harold had added to the estate documents 14 months earlier. He read it aloud. The addendum established a named scholarship fund at Georgetown University's law school. The scholarship was to support first-generation law students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. It was funded by a specific portion of the estate that Harold had designated for this purpose. The scholarship had a name. The lawyer read the name. It was mine. The Harold and Celeste Morgan First-Generation Law Scholarship. The room was very quiet. The lawyer continued reading. He read Harold's written statement attached to the addendum. Harold had written it himself 14 months earlier when his hands still allowed it. He wrote about watching me build my career from nothing. About the clerkship and the debt and the practice and the partnership. About the cases I had tried and the clients I had represented and the specific quality of someone who does the work because the work matters and not for any other reason. He wrote about what it meant to him to have me in his family. And then he wrote one sentence that I will carry for the rest of my life. He wrote, Celeste came into this family with nothing but what she had built herself, and what she built is more than most people manage with every advantage available to them. I want the world to know whose name belongs on this. I was not looking at Vivian when the lawyer read that sentence. I was looking at Harold. He was looking at me. His eyes were wet. I reached across and took his hand. When I finally looked at Vivian, she was sitting completely still. Not crying. Not speaking. Not performing any of the expressions I had watched her perform for 8 years. Just still. Her husband had said in a legal document, in a room of 11 people, in language that would be attached to a scholarship that would outlast all of us, exactly what she had spent 8 years trying to disprove. There was nothing to say after that. She did not say anything. Harold passed away 4 months later. Peacefully, at home, in the chair he had sat in at that meeting. I was there. Thomas was there. We were both there. The scholarship was established the following academic year. The first recipient was a 24-year-old woman from Eastern Kentucky studying environmental law on a merit scholarship that did not cover her living expenses. She reminded me, in ways I did not tell her, of myself at 24. I have stayed in touch with her. She is in her 2nd year now. Vivian and I have a different relationship since Harold died. Not a close one. Not a warm one in the way I might have once hoped for. But a different one. She came to the scholarship announcement event at Georgetown. She sat in the 3rd row. She did not speak to me before or after. But she came. I noticed. I did not say anything about it. Some things do not need to be said. Thomas told me 6 months after Harold died that his father had talked to him privately about me many times over the years. That he had said, repeatedly, that I was exactly the right person for his son and that the family was better for having me in it. I asked Thomas why he had not told me this earlier. He said his father had asked him not to. He had said, she does not need to hear it from me secondhand. She will hear it when it counts. He was right. Harold was almost always right. The morning after that estate meeting I sat in our kitchen with a cup of tea and thought about that sentence. Celeste came into this family with nothing but what she had built herself. I had spent 8 years in a family where one person had decided what I was before I had opened my mouth. 8 years of sitting through comments about where I came from and what I wanted and what kind of woman builds a life the way I had built mine. And in the end the answer to all of it had been written in a legal document by a man with failing hands who had been paying attention from the beginning. I did not need the vindication. I want to be honest about that. I had stopped needing it sometime around year 4 when I realized that Vivian's opinion of me said more about Vivian than it ever would about me. But it was good to hear it said. It was very good to hear it said out loud, in a room, in words that would last. Before you go, I want to ask you something real. Have you ever been in a situation where someone decided what you were before you had the chance to show them? Have you ever sat in a room and felt the weight of a judgment that had nothing to do with who you actually are? And have you ever had the experience of someone else, quietly, without announcement, without drama, simply telling the truth about you? Drop the word "built" in the comments if this story reached something real in you. And if you are new here, subscribe. Every single day I share a new story about family, about truth, and about the people who see you clearly when others refuse to look. I will see you in the next one. Kayla's Dark Truth.